Welcome back to One of One, a PLLRS Podcast, and I'm honored, and I'm a new fan, by the way.
Man, thank you.
I'm honored to be sitting down with Reuben Vincent.
Man, how you doing, man?
I'm good.
Good to see you.
I had one way of going into this, but then we started this conversation off camera, so I'm just going to shift. You have this upcoming this work, this album that you've put together called Welcome Home. And we were talking about how there's an honesty to it in regards to the actual journey or the actual shift or the up and down or the roller coaster that you might experience as an artist or a creative or as an entrepreneur.
For sure.
You could be up for a year and then like the next year is not so great. And then like the next year is not so great. And then you're up again. And then the whole time, from the perspective of the people around you or family or friends, you still have to sort of maintain this like
image.
Yeah.
It's definitely, and I think it was my first go round with these last couple of years, because I signed my deal with Roc in December of 2021 when I was 20. And 2021, I still was like getting my way in, you know what I mean? I was working on the album, living out in LA with Young Guru. But, you know, I wasn't really seeing no money because I was working on the album, you know what I mean? But I was, you know, walking by faith. I was still super happy because I was like, yo, I got a deal. I just know as soon as this album comes out, it's up, you know what I mean? But I got to go through this period of where I got to rely on Guru to make sure I'm taken care of food-wise, and I got to maybe do other little stuff to, like, just have money in my pocket. And then 2022 happened. We were still working on the album. And then by 2023, when the album came out, because we turned the album in late 2022, it came out January 2023. 2023 was like an amazing year for me. Like, money was up, opportunities was left and right. And I just thought, oh, we made it. We're out of here. It's up. You know what I'm saying? And then 2024 happens. I go on tour with Boz. After I go off tour with Boz, which I made some good money from, but, you know, having to pay for your taxes and having to, you know, stay on certain things. And then the industry took a whole shift. Then my label took a shift. And Roc went from a major label to Roc Distro. So then things started to slow down. While they were going through the period of figuring it out, I have to now figure it out for a couple of months because $5,000 to $10,000, $12,000 is only gonna last you a couple months when you gotta pay bills, you gotta pay your taxes off, and maybe you gotta travel and be an artist. You know what I mean? So by summertime of 2024, things slowed down for me, you know, and it was like a whoa. Oh, snap. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be, because I thought after 2023, I thought I had, you know, my 2021 and 2022 was like the years of like my humble years where I had to like sit and wait. You know
you thought you was straight?
Yeah, I thought I was good after 2023. I'm like, oh, it's up from here. You know what I mean? Like, I ain't going to ever have to worry about such and such. And then just to have like, you know, life hit me, I go back home. And I'm sitting, waiting. And granted, you know, I had little opportunities here and there, but it was like, it wasn't as consistent. So then now I'm sitting, waiting, you know, things aren't happening as quick. And, you know, I'm still living with my mom at this time. And she's like, what's going on? Like, why aren't you traveling as much as you used to? Why aren't there shows happening as much as you used to? Why aren't you getting, you know, money sent to you as much as you used to? You're going to have to either get a job or go back to school. And I was like, I can't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't do that. You know, I would be quitting. I would be defeating myself if I did that. And so one day, and I'm only saying this for the record, you know what I mean? I don't hold it against my mom at all because she just was caring, you know what I mean? She's an mom from West Africa. She just looking out for her boy. But she was like she was venting to my little sister on the phone. And my little sister calls me, and which is crazy to me because you my little sister, calls me. I guess she's hearing my mom's frustration, and she calls me and tries to take it out on me. And she's in college, so she's getting her first taste of freedom. Yeah. So she's thinking she's grown, and she's still you still relying on our parents. You know what I mean? But she calls me.
You're not really outside.
You're not really outside, but you think it's the illusion because you got a dorm. You're in Florida. You know what I mean? But she calls me and it's like, oh, you know, mom called me and said, you know, money's been slowing up. Like, what are you going to do? Like, you're grown. Like, you're 23. Like, you don't be a freeloader. You're being a freeloader right now. Like, just saying a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm just like, this is crazy because when I was up, I was helping you. You know what I mean? So for me to be down and you just to, like, kick my back in was crazy. So that was, like, a turning point for me. And I was just like, you know what, Mom? I'm about to leave. And I packed all of my stuff up in my car. And I drove to Raleigh 2 hours and 30 minutes, and I slept in Night Studio for 6 months. And this was actually at the top of this year. And, you know, I ended up working on this album, which, you know, ended up becoming Welcome Home. But I felt like this was I was like, yo, I'm going to just be completely honest, be completely vulnerable. And if this is the only way I'm going to be able to get this out. It's just, I'll be completely honest and vulnerable. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But at least I was completely honest. You know what I mean? And, you know, we ended up coming up with this album.
That's crazy. I can relate to that because, like, I'm first generation in the country, too. Because, like, you know, my parents are Haitian. Like, you have African.
Yeah, Liberian, first generation. Yeah.
But, like, I mean, I feel like there's similarities in terms of dealing with, like, immigrant parents and their mentality because they come here. And oftentimes, I feel like they want what's best for you, obviously.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? But this is so foreign to them, they don't even know how to navigate that.
Nah.
Like, my parents wanted me to be, like, a doctor or a lawyer. Everyone in my family is, like, in medicine.
Wow.
So I'm bugging until, like, I show up with, like, money. Or I
take
like,
care of stuff.
Yeah, like, I buy my dad a car or, like, you know, like, when shit starts moving, now it's, like, there's a little bit of pride there. Like, you know, now they're a little bit more open to entrepreneurial stuff. Like, my dad would come to me like, yo, what do you think about us, like, doing something or starting something? I think any type of real generational shift is going to be a lot. And I hope they could appreciate the work you've put together because, like, it's going to be tough. Like, the mental strain of having to not have anybody get it.
No, man.
And still have to get up and keep going and still have to keep doing the stuff. The title of the album, Welcome Home, is that connected to the struggle of you trying to find your way back to somewhere?
Yeah, find my way back to self, honestly. Home is not a place, but it's like you know, it's a condition, it's something in the core, right? That's how I at least look at it. And I feel like through my travels in this industry, I've went through valleys and peaks of, like, being at the top and being confident in who I am and then also being low and, like, dang, is this not going to work? You know what I mean? And then also, too, you got to also play in the fact of, like, being on a label and, you know, dealing with A&Rs or, you know, I had great A&Rs but I'm saying just in general, like, A&Rs or people who's at the label, like, oh, you need this type of record. You need this such and such type of record. Oh, the music that you're making isn't really, you know what I mean? And then now you're questioning who you are as a person, you know? A lot of people always used to say when I used to go around, like, at least the last couple years, like, man, you young, man. Why, like, you making these type of songs? And, you know, even Pitchfork, my first album I ever put out with Roc, they wrote, ain't no way a 22-year-old is talking about this type of experience. And I'm like, how are you going to, like, discredit me from my experience? You know what I mean? I'm just being honest. So it's a little bit of that, like, going back home to what's authentic to me, but then also, like, returning back home in a like a satire way of, like, hey, welcome home. You know what I mean? And everybody's like, oh, welcome home is celebratory, but it's like, no, welcome home. I have to figure this out. You know what I mean? So it's like both of those, and it's also another sense of, like, you know, again, like, just returning back to self-love. I go through this whole roller coaster of, like, traveling, being back home. The album starts off with me, you know, getting off of a flight and then meeting the girl who represents home. And then going through the spaces of telling her what I've been trying to do, the hustle culture, then falling back in love with home. You know what I'm saying? Like, to, you know, result at the end of the project.
So, I mean, it's crazy because shout out to Keith. He put me on to the music and everything like that. Just following your journey, there's so much there that I can relate to, especially connecting that to the whole entrepreneurial thing, what did it take for, like, because that's significant to me. You packing up everything in your car and just getting in the car, driving down to stay at the studio with no real plans or not knowing what's going to happen,
Man.
to go stay at the studio. Like, you really got to believe.
Yeah, you got to walk by faith, man, because I'm going to be honest, like, I ain't had no money in my account driving down there. I had my last little money was going towards the gas.
Yeah.
I'm about to fill this tank up, and I'm about to drive to Raleigh, and we're just going to figure it out. Well, I had a little bit of money. Like, I was like, okay, I got enough money for groceries for the next couple weeks, and then we just going to figure it out from there, you know. And I had to really, really, really walk by faith. But I knew mentally if I stayed at the house at that time, I was going to suffer even more, you know. And though I wasn't making a lot of money at the time, though things weren't happening for me at the time, I was fulfilled because I was doing what I love. You know what I mean? And I just felt like I needed to disconnect. I needed not just disconnect from my family, but like I had friends at the time. You know, I was dealing with certain people, like past relationships where, you know, again, like they see a lot of people met me. Some people at home met me before the success, but then certain people started coming in my life after the success. Like, you know, girls and, you know, other things. And, you know, you meeting me after the success, you have an illusion of who I am. Yeah. So people is like, you know, not understanding that, you know, it's the valleys and peaks. And I hate to keep going to like the money example, but it's like, for example, I probably was dating a girl, and let's say I have a rough week where it's like no money on me, you know what I mean? But I'm still showing up. And because, you know, I'm like, oh, we can't do this week. It's like, oh, why? You know what I mean? It's a whole thing instead of really understanding where I'm at. And I just felt like I needed to disconnect from all of that. I needed to disconnect from distractions. I needed to disconnect from certain peers that was around me that, you know, I just felt like I was going to succumb to my environment if I kept staying over here. And I just felt like the only way that I've been saved every time was music. So the best thing for me to do is to pack up that car and go live in the studio and then see just what happens from it. And ironically, you know, when you walk with faith and you walk with God, I feel like, you know, he's going to make it work how it needs to, because 2 weeks up there, out of nowhere, somebody just blessed me with some money. Like, look, you know, I've seen how hard you worked. They didn't even know what I was going through. They was like, you know, I have, you know, a little bonus. Here's some money. You know what I mean? Things just started to happen. Oh, somebody wanted a feature. You know what I mean? And granted, it was like in between, like it'll be like a month in between, but still that was able to stretch me out. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it was because I kept walking in faith and I kept walking towards alignment, which I felt like, you know, me and Knife were having when we was working on this album.
So you've known Knife for a really long time. You've known him for a while. What's that story? What was the connection there? So
when I was 13 years old, I had recorded in my I was recording in my guest room on my mom's house. And she was, you know, she was working 3 jobs at the time because she was a single mother and I was the oldest. So I couldn't really go outside and hang with my friends because I had to make sure my brother and sister were good. So I'm like, what am I going to do with my free time? I'm going to record. So I recorded on Apple headphones, on Audacity. I put a mixtape up. I was on Twitter, and like my cousin was like, you got to make a Twitter if you want to be a rapper. He was older than me. And, you know, I was like, all right, bet. You know, so I made my social medias. But now I'm doing the spam. You know, back in the day, they used to be spamming, yo, check me out. I'm the next legend. And, you know, the YouTube comments and stuff. So I was doing that. And I remember one of my taglines was, Michael Jordan's from North Carolina, such J. Cole's from North Carolina, I'm the next from North Carolina, or something like that. Or, oh, you need to check out, yo, I'm a 13-year-old kid phenom. You know, just those were my little taglines. But I remember spamming mad comments. Nobody saw it. So I just was like, yo, I'm over it. Like, I'm spamming comments. People are ignoring me. Or even more, they're annoyed that I'm spamming comments. So when they will reply, they're trolling me like, hey, like, get out of here, little kid. You know, little stuff like that. So I'm like, what am I doing? I'm a kid. Let me just go back to school and just mind my business. So then a week after I said that, I still kept my Twitter up, though. Somebody from Oakland decided to click on that comment. He listened to the tape. He was blown away to the point where Knife Wonder was doing a Q&A on Twitter. Ask Knife. He was like, I don't have no question. And I don't have no dog in this fight because I don't know this kid from nowhere. But I came across this kid on the internet. He's 13. He's from North Carolina. You need to check him out and pick him up. And the fact that Knife said the only reason he clicked on it, because he said he gets DMs all the time and comments all the time, but the fact they said, I don't know this kid and I don't have no dog in this fight, but you need to check him out, he's 13, it was number one that he didn't know me, but number two, the fact I was 13 and a grown man was vouching for a 13-year-old online that he did not know. So Knife heard the mixtape. He was impressed. He tweeted me. We got through the DM. He asked where my parents were. I ran to my mom, and he was like, yo, I'm in Germany right now, but when I come back to the States, I want you to bring him up so he can record. And I ended up going up there to Raleigh with my mom and recording 9 songs in 3 days and then making a beat on his machine, which was the first time I ever touched a beat machine. And he was impressed. And he was like, yo, I'm not going to promise you nothing. I can't promise you the world. I don't know how much you're going to make in this game, but, you can make some money in this game. Now, you're 13. So I want you to go sit with this decision. Do you want to, A, do this for the rest of your life and we can help you? Or number two, if this just needs to be a hobby, you can always come up here and we just let you get, vent, when you need to. But I already knew what I wanted to do. But, obviously, he didn't want me to be like a kid rapper, like a little Bow Wow or anything. No disrespect to Bow Wow, because he's a legend. But I ended up going back home, and I stayed in contact with Knife. And, he ended up always staying in contact with me. And I'll go up there every now and then. And then when I turned 16, I posted a video on Instagram of me freestyling. And he was like, oh, you sound ready. And he was like, when can you come back up? So I went back up there. Again, 3 days, recorded a lot of songs. He was impressed. And then he was like, yo, I think we want to, bring you on a Jamla. But he wanted me to still have a high school experience, still go to college, still be a kid. So even when I signed at 16, it wasn't like I signed and we was out in LA and Hollywood and in the industry. Like, no. He was just telling people like, hey, this kid's a part of Jamla. And I was making music and putting it online, but I wasn't out with them in New York or going to the parties with them. Like, they still wanted me to be a kid. Yeah. You know what I mean? So all of this happened. And when I got to high school, it wasn't Knife forcing me to do this, but every spring break, every summer, I begged for him to let me sleep at the studio. I'd be like, yo, let me sleep there. Let me record. Let me do this. Please, can I come up? Can I come up? Can I come up? Like, I can show you our Twitter DMs from when I was a teenager, me just blowing his phone up. Hey, can I come up for spring break? Can I come up for summer? I spent every spring break at his studio. I spent every summer at his studio. While my friends were at Myrtle Beach or blah, 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 I was at the studio. My prom, I was at the studio waiting for Kendrick Lamar. You know what I mean? So all of that work, that consistency, built up to the point where I was that consistent in music, I was that consistent in school. So I graduated 6 months early from high school, and because I had enough credits and my GPA was pretty good. So for the last 6 months of high school, where everybody was still in school, I was with Rhapsody traveling the road, just seeing her work on her album, seeing how she handles meetings, seeing how she handles interviews, seeing how she just handles the game. And then I went off to college, went to A&T. And then after I went to A&T, I stayed for a year, and then COVID happened. And when COVID happened, I decided to go back home and do online. But while I was home, I took my refund check and I bought equipment so I could record at the studio because I couldn't go to the studio because of COVID. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to just record here. And that just turned me up even more. It went from me recording like 9 songs in a weekend to like, yo, I'm recording every day now, and I have over 200 songs or 300 songs in the span of 7 months. You know what I mean? And I just turned into a machine. But then after that, Rap was like, yo, COVID, they're starting to lift some of the COVID things up. You still had to wear masks, but she was like, yo, I'm going to LA. I'm like, all right, bet. I went with her. She was like, yo, we gonna go to Guru house. I went to Young Guru's house, and I rapped for him. Well, Rap took me there to like, it's like leaving your little brother with your like at your friend's house, like, all right, I'm gonna be back. You stay over here. You know what I mean? So that's what it really was. But then I rapped for Guru, and he ended up like growing to like it to me to the point where he asked me to stay at his crib for 2 months. And I ended up staying at his crib for 2 months. Then he was like, can you come back? I ended up flying back and ended up staying for a whole year. And then in the midst between that year, before I like officially stayed for a year, I had went back home, I got an offer deal from Roc.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and that was like my sophomore year of college into my junior year. And I remember I was working at a fitted hat store in Charlotte when I got the call because I did a music video. And in the music video, it was like a re-edition of State of Mind by Nas, New York State of Mind. But I was like, trying to flip it on some Carolina stuff. And somebody from Roc saw it. And I remember I was clocking out, and this is like serendipity. I was clocking out, literally locking the door of the store. But the past couple days, I've been telling myself, like, I'm over where I'm at. Excuse me, I'm working a job. I'm not making barely any money. I was making $10 an hour and working 20 hours a week. That's like $200. At that, you take tax off. You know what I'm saying? It's $150. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I wasn't really making no money. School, I was really tired of school. I didn't want to finish. I just wanted to be where I wanted to be, And I remember I locked the door. As soon as I locked the door, like, it was like it was a movie moment. It just like, vroom, 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 knife. Yo, what up? Yo, where you at? I said, yo, I just clocked out. He said, you around anybody? I said, nah. He said, okay. Somebody from Roc just called me about you. They saw the video and they want to help. Do not tell nobody, but we're going to work out this paperwork and figure it out. And then that's when I end up getting my deal.
So there's a lot that's like that must come with that, because going into Roc, you have to, like, there has to be like some sort of gravity connected to everything in regards to the history of the company, everything in regards to Jay-Z and Guru and that whole legacy.
For
like,
sure.
how did you carry that? Because you had to keep it to yourself.
Man, it was the hardest 6 months of my life, bro. It was the hardest 6 months of my life. Obviously, I told one person. Yeah. You know what I mean? I had to. I told my boy Nuke, and I told Nuke and Johnny. Nuke is my cousin who's a part of Third World, and Johnny's my DJ who's another person part of Third. But I told him, I was like, yo, y'all cannot tell nobody, but I got a deal with Roc on the table. You know what I mean? And I was like, y'all have to keep it low. And for 6 months, it was the hardest thing ever because my mom is like, when are you going back to school? Are you going to go back on campus now since they're lifting
You didn't
stuff?
even tell your mother?
No, I couldn't because the reason why I didn't tell her because I wanted to surprise her when the contract came. I didn't want to tell her and then it don't happen and then she looking at me like, well, go back to school. So for 6 months, I'm just in the house pretending to, and then also too, I had stopped going to class.
Gotcha.
But I didn't tell her. So she think I'm just online and she's like, okay, next semester you're going to go back on campus. And I remember she called me one day when I was in the gym and she was like, did you register for classes next semester? And I was like, nah, I didn't. And she was like, why not? And I was like, I'm about to focus on music. And she started blacking. She, you know what I'm saying? She's, African mom blacking. And then I was like, well, of course all you would do is focus on music if you had a deal with Roc on the table. I was trying to surprise you, but you're not, you're pushing the buttons, but it was hard, man. And then also too, I'm sitting waiting for the lawyers to do the paperwork. They're going back. And granted, it was a blessing because, they're going back asking for stuff like, no, we need this in the paperwork. We need this. So now I'm like, are we going to sign it yet? Are we going to sign it yet? Are we going to sign it yet? I'm looking at my pockets like, are we going to sign it yet? You know what I mean? And it just all, I had to really, 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 really be patient. It really tested my patience because all this was going on and I was still fighting the battles that I was fighting of working, getting $150 a week every 2 weeks or something like that. Trying to keep it from my mom, my friends feeling like, where am I going with music-wise? I can't even tell them what's going on. It was super hard, bro. Yeah.
Yo, that in-between place is tough where
man.
You're still trying to balance like real life, quote unquote, and then what a lot of people might regard as like a fantasy. Yeah. A lot of people probably don't even recognize what you do as work. They probably think you just run around having a good time.
Good time, yeah. My mom did for a long time. Like, I had to tell her one day, I'm like, yo, you think that like it's fun. My work is fun, but like,
Because you love it.
Yeah, it's because I love it. It's hard work though. She used to think, at least when I first got signed, that it's like I'm just having a permanent vacation. Oh, I'm in LA or I'm in here and I'm just whoop-de-doo having a great time of my life. You know what I mean? And which it is a great time, but it's hard work. You know what I mean? It's not just wake up and do whatever you want. You know what I mean? Because it can easily go away when you move like that. But a lot of people thought that. You know what I mean? And even just to the point of me wanting to be a rapper, it's just like, okay, that's like not sustainable. You know what I mean? I have family members like, maybe you should go to the Army. Maybe you should da-da-da. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, no. You know what I mean? And they're not knowing what's about to happen. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, it was definitely tough.
So having Ninth and Guru be like these sort of mentors to you in the industry, that's huge. What do you feel like you've walked away with that you might not have otherwise, like engaging with them or working under them or having them be there to guide you?
I walked away with my integrity. I walked away with the dignity that a lot of people don't have, and I just don't do sucker stuff. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of sucker stuff that be going on in this industry, and I feel like me being around Ninth and Guru, they have protected me from doing things that just aren't real. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people probably look at Ninth and Guru as like purists when it comes to hip hop, right? You know what I mean? They're not in the media for controversy. They're not doing things for clout, sort. They're not, compromising. And I think me being around them has built up a certain principle in me where it's like, I'm not gonna go on the internet and do something for the looks. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not about to pose and fake in front with y'all and, just do sucker stuff. You know what I mean? There's a lot of sucker stuff that goes on. And I think, Ninth being in North Carolina, and being solid how he is and about staying in North Carolina and not being in the industry but not being a part of the industry or being a part of the rat race, I think has protected me a lot. And then also to Guru, who lived in LA, but he was also a person that was like, I ain't going to that if it don't feel right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, we don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, we don't do that. That he was very adamant about that. There's times labels ask me to do certain things or, fake certain stuff. And like, he's like, nah, we not doing that. You know what I mean? I think that's something I took away. And then also to just staying the course and being patient,
That year you spent with Guru out in LA, like, were there like any significant like moments or any memories that stick out? That sounds crazy to me. Like, I mean, we're sitting here and I got to be like calm and like do the whole interview thing, but that sounds insane.
Nah, it was a blessing. It was definitely a blessing. I think I learned a lot as a man living out with Guru, and especially at the age I did. I was coming into manhood, 21 years old, still freshly early into my 20s. I was waking. It sounds so regular to me now because I was there for a year. But I probably as a kid, I'm like, what? You know what I mean? But I will wake up. I'll wake up and not. Goo is like a nerd. You know what I mean? And not in a negative way because I'm a nerd too. You know what I mean? But he had books on books on books. You know what I mean? So we'll wake up. First thing he'll wake up, he drink his coffee, or we're reading Art of War. You know what I mean? Or he's putting something educational on YouTube. And I'm not gonna lie, we put some ratchet stuff in between just because we gotta be embedded in the culture. You know what I mean? So we'll watch, one morning we might watch a Amiri Baraka speech or a Marcus Garvey speech or something about Black history. And then the next morning we might watch somebody fighting on World Star or something like that. But he's breaking it down to me, just the aspect, not even just to watch it and laugh. Like, we'll watch and laugh, but he'll break down the internal battles of that. Oh, this person is fighting their homeboy because they hate themselves. And it was deep conversations like that before we got even to the music. You know what I mean? So imagine that being your routine for every day living with Guru. You know what I mean? And I understand why they call him Guru now. You know what I mean? Obviously, he's an incredible engineer. I think one moment that sticks out to me is two moments. One moment that sticks out to me is when I first signed, he FaceTime Hove just in the crib, just randomly. it's 2 times actually that Hov was on the phone. I was like, whoa. And the one time he FaceTime Hov is sitting in the back of the Maybach, just cool as ever. You know what I mean? And he's like, yo, I got my young boy. He just signed to Roc. You know what I mean? I want to introduce y'all in person. I'm introduce y'all on the phone first. He passed me the phone on FaceTime. My braids ain't even done. I got an afro. I'm looking crazy. But I'm just like, yo, it's Jay. You know what I mean? I don't even care. And I just tell him, like, I appreciate him for even just allowing me to, you know, be a part of his company. And then another time, it was like 5 a.m. in the morning, and Jay called him, like, on a treadmill, reciting a rap to him that he just thought of. Like, yo, I just thought of this ill verse, and he just, like, rapping it to him. And I'm just sitting there like, yo. I think it also sparked a discipline thing in me, because the fact that Jay is waking up at 5 a.m. on a treadmill, writing a rap while he's running on a treadmill, I was like, oh, his discipline level is crazy. And then another time was I was at Emery's crib. We went to Emery's crib, and, you know, they were just showing me the neighborhood, and then we were sitting in his backyard, and Emery looked at me. He was like, yo, I really rock with you. You in my house right now. Not a lot of people come to my house. You know what I mean? And it just was like, these are people that I looked at as heroes as a kid. I remember watching Fade to Black before I knew Knife or Guru personally, and looking at it and seeing Jay do Madison Square Garden and being like, that's where I want to be. You know what I mean? So just to have that full circle moment is like, it was definitely a culture shock every day to wake up next to Young Guru. Like, not next to him, but like wake up in the room. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had a bedroom and he had a bedroom, to the point where his apartment, his condo in LA is now my place. You know what I mean? Like, that room that I slept in, it went from a guest room to this is Reuben's room. I have shoes in there. I still got stuff in there to this day. You know what I mean? And after like 6 months, he was like, that's your room now. Like, it's not even a, you know what I mean? I'm just like, whoa. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
That's dope. Like, were there any moments other than that in terms of Hov, like where he maybe gave you advice or imparted something, or was there any takeaway from your interactions with him?
It was in New York, 2023, Book of Hov. I went to Book of Hov after we was doing like a press run for Humble Souls. And I didn't see him at the Book of Hov, but he had a dinner afterwards. So me, Just Blaze, and Guru, and my manager at the time went to the private dinner, and he had rented out the whole restaurant. Uzi was there, Fat Joe was there, like all these big names, Tata's, the OG Wands, you know. My homie Strick told me, dude, finish your breakfast. I met Strick that day, you know what I mean? Gave me his number. I'm like, what? You know what I mean? And for that to happen, it just ended up being very, very, so I went up to him afterwards during the dinner. I saw him because I was dapping up Emery. And I was like, yo, like, I dapped up Emery and I hugged Emery. When I hugged Emery, like, you know, obviously my head is over Emery's shoulder. I'm looking and Hov is looking at me. So then I, like, looked at him. I'm like, so then he was like, I walked over there, I dapped him up, and I was just telling him, like, yo, seeing the Book of Hov was like, oh, snap. Like, you know, it showed how he was able to alchemize his life, you know, from being a kid from Marcy to be able to see this, and even you hear it in the music before it happens. You know what I mean? Where he talks about being a billionaire before it even happened 10 years before, you know what I mean? Like, I was just telling him, like, yo, he is like a master manifester, you know what I mean? And like, to be able to alchemize your life and, you know, be able to be at the level that you're at is inspiring to me. You know what I mean? I was just like, yo, thank you for the inspiration. And he looked me in my eyes. He was like, I can see you got your focus up. He was like, keep that focus. And that was it. That's all I needed to hear. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Senses from Hov is like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. And it's just, the one thing I admire about, people can say whatever they want about him, you know what I mean? But you have to have a level of mental power to be able to manifest your life how he has, to be able to, you know, as Black people, as people in general, there's a lot of things that we have blockages on ourselves about, you know what I mean? Is whether it's self-doubt, whether it's, you know, things that might have became hereditary, or like financial issues, and, you know, I don't think people realize we create a lot of our issues because it might stem not just from ourselves, but our family, what we've seen growing up in our house. You know what I mean? If you constantly see your mom say, I'm broke, I'm broke, I'm broke, I'm broke, what do you think that does to your psyche? You know what I mean? So for him to be able to come from that and be able to like break all them barriers mentally for himself, to be able to be like, okay, you know, I did come from hard times. I did have to do hard, like bad things, like sell drugs and stuff. But then I turned my life around, and you know, labels didn't believe in me, so I took my money and started my own label. You know what I mean? And then you know what? Now I'm doing this and being able to constantly elevate yourself. I don't think people really realize the mental power that takes and how special you have to be to do that. You know what I mean? I think I realized that just walking around the book of Hope.
And I mean, just hearing you talk about it, hearing the mindset, like, and the focus on your end, despite all of the ups and downs, like, it's encouraging.
Thank you.
So, like, the dope thing is that same reference point that Jay is to you, like, at some point you're probably going to be to somebody.
Man, I hope, man. I be telling people, when I was younger, I used to be telling people I'm trying to be the Jay-Z of Charlotte, man. So hopefully, you know what I mean? But I want to do it my way, you know. But I definitely take a lot of time sitting, trying to, you know, make sure I'm not having blockages on my own mind, you know what I mean? That's stopping me from, you know, being in alignment of whatever, you know, God and the universe has for me, you know.
So what do you hope is next? Like, you put out this incredible project. What what's on the horizon? What are you trying to manifest next?
I think with this album, I want to manifest. Honestly, I'm gonna be real. I want this album to be one of those albums people speak about that's like acclaimed. You know what I mean? Like critically acclaimed. One of the best albums they've heard in a while in hip hop. You know, I'm putting that out into the universe. I want this album to take me all over the globe. I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to tour off the album. I want to be able to, like, you know, turn my life around off the album. You know what I mean? Make a whole 180 from the 2 years that I just had. I want to be able to then venture into, like, you know, businesses and different business ideas that I have. You know, I want to act. You know what I mean? I want to get more into acting, get more into, like, you know, being an entrepreneur in the sense of not just out in music. You know what I mean? I have entrepreneurial ideas. And then I also, too, want to go back to where my family is from and, you know, pour into Liberia. You know what I mean? So those are little things I want to do. I also want to give back somehow to the Charlotte music scene. And, you know, I've talked about this since I was 16, but I want to build a studio out there. But not just a studio. I want it to be an academy. You know what I mean? Where kids can, like, you know, go there if their grades is, you know, if they have a 2.8 GPA and higher, maybe 2.5, you know what I mean? They be able to go to the studio and be able to have that as like an after-school program. You know what I mean? Like one side of the studio be an after-school program for kids who are creatives, and then all the lit artists and the people that I have relationships with, whenever they come to the city, they can come to the studio as well and maybe even speak to the kids and stuff like that. So I want to do stuff like that for sure.
That's dope. Like, I mean, from the conversation, like that the album's great, but just from the conversation, I'm definitely a fan.
Thank you, bro.
I'm rooting for your success. And who gives a fuck what I think? But I think the album's fire, bro.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you for taking the time sitting down.
I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for watching. It's been an honor sitting down and talking to Reuben Vincent. Like, I hope, and matter of fact, no, I know I'm going to look back at this one day and be like I definitely chopped it up with something before shit went crazy.
Absolutely.
And, yeah, man, it's been an honor.
Likewise, man. Appreciate
Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Peace.